Thank you very much. I want to thank you, Congresswoman Plaskett, for hosting this special order, for your kind words, but also for your commitment to providing health care for all Americans, for your leadership in the Caribbean Caucus, for your dedicated constituent representation of your constituents in your district, and also being the epitome of why Caribbean American Heritage Month is so important. There are so many Caribbean Americans throughout our country who have contributed so much to the fabric of our society, and so I'm really proud to be with you. And thank you for signing H-Con Res 71, because that was during the days of the bipartisanship spirit. If a Barbara Lee and a George Bush could work together, then that says something about what we can accomplish, but also about the brilliance and the importance of the Caribbean American community. So thank you very much. This, also, let me just mention Dr. Claire Nelson, who's the founder and president of the Institute of Caribbean Studies, because for over a decade, just in terms of history, we worked closely together to recognize the many individual contributions of Caribbean Americans and to make Caribbean American Heritage Month a reality. So I must today salute her for her tremendous leadership. Our nation has been so fortunate to benefit from countless individuals of Caribbean descent, including my personal mentor and friend, the late Honorable Shirley Chisholm, whose district now is so ably represented by our colleague of Jamaican descent, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke. Now, Shirley Chisholm was a woman of Bajan and Guyanese descent who never forgot her roots in the Caribbean. She was the first African-American woman elected to Congress, the first woman and the first African-American to run for president. She was truly a trailblazer, and she convinced me that I needed to actually register to vote. Now, throughout her career, Shirley was an advocate and a fighter. She fought for working families, the poor, our most vulnerable, children, seniors. She believed that everyone should have the basics: food, housing, a decent job, good wages, and health care, again, regardless of their background. And let me tell you, I know that she would have been appalled by this Senate health bill. Mr. Speaker, I'm disappointed, and to be quite honest, I'm terrified about the Republicans' heartless bill to rip health care away from 22 Americans. Now, next year, 15 million Americans will lose their health care. And believe you me, these are not just Democrats, these are not African Americans, but these are also Republicans and people who voted for Trump. The bill currently, this bill was hatched by 13 male Republicans in back rooms and basements. They hid it for as long as they could because they knew if they held an honest debate, they would lose on the merits. According to the Congressional Budget Office today, the Senate's bill would strip health care from 22 million Americans, devastate women's health, and weaken protections for those living with pre-existing conditions, with disabilities. It will increase premiums and reduce benefits. And it would also make Americans pay more for less. It would end Medicaid as we know it, including long-term care for our seniors. What's more, it will harm American families and really will present an environment now where it's a matter of life and death for so many who don't even need to worry about not having health care. They should have health care, because otherwise many people who are going to be denied under this bill can lose their lives. And for what? Why are we doing this, or why are they doing this? It's to pay for tax cuts for billionaires and for millionaires and for CEOs. Mr. Speaker, over the last few months, like all of us, I've received thousands of letters from constituents in the East Bay who are terrified of losing their health care. I've heard from people like Melissa, a mother in Oakland whose son Sam was born premature with several pre-existing conditions. Her son received health care under the Affordable Care Act. Under the Senate health care bill, children like Sam will be locked out of the care that they desperately need. They are terrified. It would force American families like Melissa's to choose between groceries and health care. Mr. Speaker, this bill is cruel, And yes, it is mean. It is a massive tax cut for billionaires at the expense of families and our most vulnerable. Now, during the campaign, President Trump asked the question, what does the black community have to lose? Well, for starters, Mr. President, I hope you hear us tonight, it's health care. Given the number of African Americans, which Congressman Vesey laid out, who have, for the first time, now have health care. In all my years in Congress, I have never seen such a morally bankrupt bill. And make no mistake, it is a matter of life and death, and the American people deserve better. Finally, let me just say, this bill is not a health care bill. It's a tax cut bill for millionaires and billionaires. And it's known as Trump Care. I don't know how it got that title, because it's more like, and what I call it is Trump don't care legislation, and it must be rejected. Thank you.